This is John Walton, and you're listening to the Power Play Point podcast with the Blue Liner on point and Anna Knox. Here's Wilson, and on the right circle, he scores!
Rebound loose, wild scramble in front, score! Ovechkin with a buzzer beater! It'll count!
And a hat trick tonight, number 21,
Hello, welcome once again to the Power Play Point podcast. This is the Blue Liner on Point, your host, and we're talking to you live to tape. Well, I am from my humble abode in downtown Glen Burnie, Maryland, and do things a little bit differently this week. The beloved San Francisco 49ers have a playoff spot on the line. They're fighting for their lives. So my erstwhile co-host, the one and only mermaid from Centerville, Virginia, super fan of theirs, is going to hop on for a bit. Hello, Anna.
Hello, Gil. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday to you. And
But Gil, I have a question for you.
Ask away.
All right. Do you like Bloody Marys?
I've never had one, so I can't say
Really?
yes or no.
Okay. I can see how it would be an acquired taste. I had my annual lunch today with my best friend, and
Yes, I saw the pictures.
yes, and it was one of the best ones I have ever had. And I'm usually, like sometimes when you see them on TV and it's like a chicken tender and a crab claw and like all this, I'm like, that's just too much. This was just the right amount of deliciousness. So I'm happy from this like delicious from Cooper's Hawk. They have one in Reston and I think Loudoun area. But I thought I'd ask. It is an acquired taste, as are blue cheese. Green olives stuffed with blue cheese. Love them, hate them.
I do like olives.
Green.
Green and black.
Okay.
And I do like blue cheese. Never had them together.
Oh.
Had blue cheese on a burger.
Okay. Then you would love them, and that was part of the Bloody Mary as well. All right. Well, now I know when we see each other face to face, whenever that is going to be, we're having Bloody Marys.
Okay. I'll try anything once, especially if it's a drink.
Yeah.
And yeah, that actually sounds kind of awesome. So yeah,
Okay.
I would love to try that.
Awesome.
Sweet. Okay. We
Totally
actually.
random. Sorry.
No. That's cool. That's cool. That's very cool. I'm glad you brought that up because I was kind of thinking, about drinks for the holidays and stuff like that. So that's actually very, very cool. So yeah, I'll take another look at that picture that you guys posted. Because yeah, that did look kind of nice. Okay. So yes, Bloody Marys can be a quality holiday drink. So that'll be something to consider.
Definitely. I like the segue.
I like that. Yeah, I was hoping you would. Anyway, so a couple things I wanted to go over kind of quick here, respectfully, if I could. If you've been listening to us for a while, you've gotten to know, hopefully you've gotten to know one of our loyal listeners from overseas, the Scottish Caps fan, Grant Green. He and his wife, Megan, recently had a baby, and the little lad was born premature, and unfortunately, little Niall passed away. Did not survive. passed away very, very recently. So we're offering our condolences, of course. And actually, what we're doing here is I'm going to go ahead and dedicate this week's episode to little Niall, the littlest Caps fan.
Yeah.
Because that's well, we take care of and watch over each other, this little family we've got. So thoughts and prayers, of course, to the Greens, and thanks, Grant, for sticking with us, and understandably, even through this tough time, sending out your messages and letting us know what's going on, and if anybody happens to be near them in the UK, they did announce funeral arrangements. So there is that. Just one last thing for little Niall. Just want to offer this quick little Irish prayer. I pray that you will have the blessing of being consoled. May you know in your soul that there is no need to be afraid. And he is in heaven with his grandfather,
Grandmother.
Grant's parents, who also, well, we mentioned, I think we mentioned about a year and a half ago that they passed as well. So there is that. So in our own clumsy way, offering condolences and dedicating this otherwise hopefully joyous episode to little Niall's memory.
Yes.
On to well, for me anyway, selfishly, happier things. Of course, if some of you out there are Facebook friends with me, you saw that I announced that I had the pleasure of last night, and you might hear it in my voice. I had the pleasure of attending the Maryland State High School Championships, football championships, specifically the 3A division. My alma mater, Arundel High School, won the 3A championship last night by a score of 35-7.
Oh.
Yeah, pretty damn good game, if I do say so.
Yeah.
And that's why I usually cover the games on our Facebook page, but I kind of got distractified about halfway through when they were pouring it on, and yeah. And I always say crowds make the difference. Don't ever argue with me, because I swear to God, our section was so loud, we caused 2 false start penalties on the other team. I'm not kidding.
Good
All right.
job.
I'm sure we caused 2 of those false start penalties, and they had a ton of them. But I'm sure that's the effect that we had. So when I say that, I mean it. And that's so next time you're at a Caps game, be as loud as you want to be. Let me tell you. And finally, let me give some shouts to some awesome players who are bound for some good stuff here. The Wildcats were led by a running attack that was relentless. TJ Mordecai, senior. I'm not sure if he's declared for any school yet. I'm sure they'll be looking at him. And my man Nassim Tenchan, he's actually a junior, so he'll be running it back next year. And I think there'll be good things for him. A quarterback, Amir Lowry, very mobile quarterback. So good things for him, hopefully. And you talk about a Secretary of Defense. This guy was in on every tackle pretty much. Nick Oliver, number 42. Senior middle linebacker, and arguably the overall star of the team, Brandon Gorham, defensive end, who is declared for Delaware University. So just want to give a shout to those gentlemen. Hopefully bigger, better things on for those guys. But congratulations to my Arundel Wildcats for winning the 3A championship. That's actually the school's first since 1975.
You weren't there then.
Oh, no, I wasn't. I'm not that
kidding.
old.
Kidding.
I'm old. I'm not that bloody old. Oh, and of course, I'd be remiss if I did not include my good friend Earl Millett Jr., who graduated with me in 1992, and whose idea was to go to the game, and we froze our butts off, but got there early. Had great seats on the 50-yard line at Navy Marine Corps Stadium where the game was held, and had an awesome time. So, you're listening, Earl, and I know you are because you said you would be. Thanks so much. All right. So, okay, but let's get on to the hockey, and it was a great week. Speaking of other cold sports, a great week for hockey, for specifically for this team, the Washington Capitals. So, as I said, we're going to do things a little bit differently this week. We actually have a very special guest waiting in the wings, whom we'll bring on here shortly. Anna's time with us is limited this week. So she will be giving her take on all three games, kind of quick here, and then she will need to drop off, as I mentioned, to attend to her beloved 49ers. Then we will bring on our guest, and we will go into a bit of a deeper dive into all three games, and one in particular, which I'll mention here in a bit. But Anna, what did you think overall?
Oh, overall, I agree. It was great. It did not start off great though. I'll say that much. I was definitely expecting more out of that Sharks game.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I think that was one that was rough. That was rough. Um,
well, I mean, even though it was a loss, it wasn't a bad loss.
no, but I will say what I found rough, and I know you and I have spoken about this before, but those penalty minutes, uh, the fact that the Caps had 18, not okay. Definitely not okay. That's what really stood out, and of course, Tommy being one of them with 4, is not good, but yeah, I will say this was another game, they came out slow. It didn't really feel like I don't know, they weren't giving it their all, um, and that was the one game out of the 3 that I just wasn't thrilled with it, and I like the Sharks, but, um I was hoping for more, and I think we had that too little, too late. The fact that they had to go into overtime, and we lost. But it was nice to see Nick Dow get his 7th, Faravari get his 6th, and Miro get his 3rd at 13:02 in the second period. So that was good. But yeah, again, if for me, what the big thing that's I was like, oh, what the hell. I should also say power play. I was 0 for 3. But the penalty minutes, that 18, that's just ridiculous and
Yeah, that
way
that
too
that
much.
kind of that kind of doomed them,
Yeah.
especially that last one. And yeah, I didn't want to say anything, but yeah,
Well, it just
our, our
I
our boy
it
was a tad bit reckless with his stick
yes.
at the
Yes,
end
and
at a bad time, and we kind of talked about this last week.
we
And
did, which is why I'm like, "Oh my god, 2 in a row," but, you know what, he definitely, redeemed himself in the
that he
next
did.
2, and
That
especially
he
last
definitely
night.
did.
I was like, a little karma to the face, unfortunately, but yeah, do you wanna anything you wanna chat about? I mean, I know you guys are to go into this more, but
No, no,
this
I
is
mean,
my Mac game.
you pretty much, yeah, you pretty much covered it. I mean, I don't think I did. Well, just one last thing. I don't think I think people need to realize the Sharks are nowhere near as bad as most are making them out to be. And
Absolutely.
I think this game was proof of that. They may be years away from being a contender, but they can hang with a lot of teams.
Well, I think
Um,
this was a sign of, we've got this, and I didn't see 60 minutes of hockey. I don't know about the rest of you. I
and it,
felt like they
yeah,
just looked meh.
yeah,
So
and
unfortunately,
and if you take them lightly, this is what'll happen.
exactly.
Oh,
This is why
all
we
right.
need to be on the bench, go to like be like, listen, guys,
If only,
listen to what we have to say.
if only.
If
Um,
only.
so what did you think of the Toronto game?
but like the Toronto game. Um, again, started off a little slow.
Hmm.
For us, I thought the Leafs came out like a bat out of hell, and they were ready to go. They showed up. Um, they were ready for 60 minutes. We looked like we were ready for not
Hmm.
60 minutes, and that was a little disappointing. But going into the second period, we got nicked out again. Um,
Yep.
and I do wish, I know it was a minute 6 into the second period. I wanna hear Roy's name more, to be honest. Um, I'm liking I'm liking what I'm seeing, but I wanna hear more. If that makes sense. Like,
Well,
he's
yeah,
one on
I,
my
I,
radar.
yeah, I get that, but he's one of those guys where a lot of what he does isn't going to make the score sheet.
Right, but
So,
no, but I just feel like not even I just wanna see I just feel like he's kinda like how I was with Protus before, where I'm like, "I like him. I wanna see more. I know you can do more. I know we can see more. I know you played and then were injured and, but I like him. I think, I don't have anything negative to say about any of our players this year,
mhm.
which is great for probably listeners. Um but yeah, that was just one that just the name that just I'm like, all right, keep it going.
Right.
And God, that third period. Can you love Connor McMichael anymore?
No.
I mean, come on. 9:51. He scores. I love it. He's excited. Wasn't this his first goal in Toronto?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Yeah. So his 15th. Like holy and when we said this before a couple years ago, everyone was like, "Oh, I'm not really sure, maybe, maybe not, don't know what to think." He's proven himself and he's being consistent, and I absolutely love his passion on the ice. I feel like he's out there and not overthinking it, playing smart, and in a good headspace, and that's what we needed to see from the beginning of the season, and we have, and consistently, and this kid is rocking it, and Dubois with his 14th assist. Amazing. And then I don't care empty netter or not, 1903 my Protus scoring. Yay. Loving it. And nicked out and Wilson too with the assist. I don't know. I liked this game. I think this is exactly what they needed uh to put the Sharks game behind them.
Yeah, definitely.
Just how I thought, but I don't know. What did you think? Did you like this game?
I did not like the way it started, but a better start overall than the next game.
Right.
Um, I Toronto kind of has a high octane offense, so I was kind of iffy. Even with getting the first goal and the one they gave away,
Yep.
was yeah, that didn't give me a very good feeling. I liked the way they locked it down, and came right back, and then just they took away Toronto's weapons, and that was key. And of course, timely saves from your goalie, always wins the day. So that's really all I have to add to that one. Okay, so on to, well, probably the most exciting game of the week, in a
Oh,
lot of different ways.
right.
Montreal.
Crazy. And I love seeing, Tommy being first star and Logan Thompson being second. I love that these two had fantastic games. I don't know how the hell anybody can say that hockey players aren't complete badasses when you take a puck to the face, go into the locker room, realize everything's okay, and come out, continue playing, and we'll say score twice, but just my God, the skill and the athleticism of hockey players is badass beyond belief. Um, but again, didn't like the start of this game. I don't know, here we go. We're going into that first period and we are down to nothing.
Yeah,
Like, what the hell happened?
chasing Boscolo again.
Yeah.
So,
And second period, 33 seconds in, it was a little wake up call, and here we go. PLD with his fourth, assisted by Carlson and Radish. Um, and then that was it for the second. So it's like, okay, guys, come on. Like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And I think that whatever the hell was said in the locker room, definitely showed up on ice at the last 20 minutes. Like I said before, Tommy left puck to the face, managed to come back and get his 10th. Assist by Protus and Roy, love it. Tommy again, makes me excited. 4.5 minutes later, and then Dylan Strom with power play goal at the end, and fantastic. And what an insane win, and what a badass goalie uh, between the pipes for the Caps.
yeah, he pretty much saved them the first
Yeah,
5-6 minutes of that last period.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, just on
what was it
fucking
4
fire.
breakaways, 3 breakaways?
hmm Just amazing.
Insane.
So it was an exciting game. But again, like if you so did you see this, or were you at the football game?
I I was no, I was at the football game for the duration of the live. I DVR'd it and I
Gotcha.
watched it a couple of times on that and tried to break it down as much as I could.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it came down to not letting the opening period, get them 2 down. I don't like that has become something of a pattern for them, but
Right.
I do like their resilience, and we'll be able to literally quantify their resilience a little bit more with our guest coming up here in a minute, among other things. But that's it's great that they still display that. We're a third of the way through the season, pretty much, and they're they're on top of the league. They're on a great roll. They've won 9 straight road games, and I like the trend.
Absolutely. And I know before I hop off, I know we're going for them. They have 4 days off, and that's
Right.
in the past. It's not always been our friend.
No,
Definitely
but obviously there's also some bumps and bruises, literally, that they're going to need to have that
tend to.
time.
Well, and that's what I mean, like, in the past, it hasn't been our friend, but I think that there's just something different about this team this year, Carberry this year. There's just something that I feel like it's not gonna be like, "Okay, you had 4 days off and you're gonna come back going up against Columbus on Thursday and be like, yeah, I'm still kinda tired, not really feeling it." I don't think we're gonna see that. I think that who needs to be rested will be rested, and icing the cheek and everything else. We're seeing Ovechkin on the ice, sort of. I don't think they're gonna rush him back, but what a badass, again, our captain is. And I think the next 2 games, even though both teams, I'm not even gonna say they're not good, they're not bad, but their win streaks are a little bit lower. We can't go into having that mindset that, like, we should just automatically
Right.
win both games. We want to, but we also kinda went into that with the Sharks, and look at what happened there. So, yeah.
Okay.
I know
All
that
right. So
was definitely different for us because usually I don't talk as much and about the stuff, and I just give my opinion, but thanks, Gil, for the opportunity.
no problem at all. And well, I mean, sometimes you got to do things a little bit differently.
You do. You're
So
just much better at it than I am.
well, uh, like you said, sometimes you got to shake things up, and you know, give a little, take a little with the opportunity. So I'm glad you were wanting and able to take the lead this week. So I do thank you for that. Um, and it's for a decent cause. Um, and I hope
Well, yes.
I sincerely hope this is the tie-in I mentioned. I sincerely hope whatever juju obviously affected my high school team follows the 49ers, because that was just magic. They weren't even favored to win that game. So
Oh, sweet. Well, we're up 14-0 right now, so
Awesome, awesome.
that is awesome. I'm gonna step off. I will let you do the intros to our guest, who I appreciate is on, and I'm assuming will be on again at some point, and all three of us will be on at the same time.
Hopefully so. If you're listening, say goodbye to the mermaid. She has stuff to attend to. Thank you so much for doing this week, and we
Of
will see you in
course.
2 weeks.
Yes, you will, and I'll see you tomorrow night.
Yep,
All
definitely.
right, bye.
Bye. Okay, so that was the mermaid, and she gave her take, and she obviously has some strong opinions on how this team played this week. Um, so we're going to bring on our guest here who has, well, shall we say, a different approach to the team. He's been on with us before, so we're not going to give him the talk show treatment. It's been a while, but want to introduce to our loyal listeners now to the Triple P, Blake Allen from the Chirpin DMV podcast. You still doing that, by the way, Blake?
Not a ton. It's just kind of it was life happened and it got hard for us all to keep working on it. Maybe someday it'll come back in some capacity, but for now it's kind of on pause.
Okay, I get that. When I was first starting this gig, I kind of had to do that a few times, getting it off the ground. But yeah, I totally get that. But yeah, I kind of hope you guys come back and do that. Um, some good stuff that you had. Um, Now it's been a while. It was what was it? I think 2-3 seasons ago.
Probably
Might even
something
been
like that. Yeah.
yeah, 2-3 seasons ago. It was you and Brad Silvestro who does the YouTube videos. Although he hasn't had time to do one in a while. So hope he comes back too. Hope I'm not a jinx here, but um, so, kind of reintroduce yourself to our listeners who may not be familiar with what all you do, if you could.
um. Yeah. So I I studied statistics in college, and there is a world of sports statistics, and being a sports fan, I thought that was pretty cool. So I dig into the the way we track hockey using statistics and hockey performance and all that.
And so that was that well, kind of a dumb question here, but was that something of a major in college or just general mathematics or statistics or
Yeah, so I studied math in college, and then I just for fun do the sports stuff.
awesome, awesome. And so are the Caps your main team or
Yeah, I grew up in DC, so and I'm still here. Well,
and
Northern Virginia, but
right, right. So, another quick review. How long you been a Caps fan?
my first favorite player was Richard Zednick. So,
Oh, nice. Yes, I
yeah,
definitely remember him.
yeah.
So, yeah, great, great forward. Lots of speed. Key component of the '98 Cup run team. So yeah, definitely. Okay, so all right. So first, I thought what we would do is kind of give, well, you're going to get to give your own take on the three games, what you liked and didn't like. But there's one key stat in hockey analytics that I think is very important, and certainly for the Caps this year, and that's expected goals for.
Mhm.
Um, and that's it's calculated a certain way, as I understand it, based on position and movement of the puck. But a lot of our listeners may not be too familiar with the concept or how it looks or how the numbers are arrived at. So I was kind of hoping, as part of your experience with us this week, that you would kind of come on and explain that particular key stat with us.
Yeah. So, the first thing I think is most important is that um, everybody has an internal expected. I heard somebody once say this. I cannot for the life of me remember who said it, but I thought it was really wise and helpful. Everybody has an internal expected goals model, If you've ever said to yourself, "How did that not go in?" That's because you expected it to be a goal. You have expected goals in your brain. You may not have a number associated with it, but you do have some sort of mental model of what should or shouldn't be a goal. And the metric of expected goals is kind of just applying math to someone's mental model of what should be a goal. Um, Generally, what's most easily available is just, or what the league like publishes publicly, is the location of shot attempts. And so we're able to, using math, say, okay, so this shot attempt was from this location, and shots from that location go in, let's say 5% of the time or 22% of the time, and then kind of aggregating that all together. There are other things that people will use, such as like, where was the previous event? So, like, for instance, if there's like a turnover in the defensive zone, and then you take it, and then the next thing that happens is a shot in the offensive zone, they might call that a rush attempt. That doesn't necessarily mean that visually you'd classify it as such, but that's the closest we can get without the league publishing a lot more data than they do. But so they'll use stuff like that, and then it all gets put into essentially an equation, and spits out how likely each shot is to become a goal. And then we just aggregate that across however different ways you want to aggregate it, whether it be by player, by team, by situation, and so forth. And that's how we get this metric.
So it really depends on quite a few things, but key components being where the location of the shot, if I'm hearing this right.
That's
And
the biggest one in every model that you'll ever see. Everybody's model is slightly different, but based on the data that is available to the public, without individuals having to sit down and watch every single game, that's the biggest. There are people who sit down and watch and track on their own separately from the league, but it's very time intensive, and unless you're getting paid for it, it's just hard for everybody to do that.
yeah, I'm kind of ticked off at the NHL because in many years ago, the addition of the app that, well, it was before they took over the team apps. The Caps actually had their own app that was covering their team and nobody else, and they actually had the location, not a heat map per se, if you've ever seen one of those, but the actual location of the shots. They would mark the location of the shots per period. And
Right.
the current edition of the app doesn't have that. And I don't know why they decided to take that out. A lot of people relied on that. But yeah, among other reasons, that's why I'm not too happy with, the makers of that app. I mean, hopefully they bring that back.
They did a lot of
eh,
bad things to that app.
yeah, yeah. Not very good things. Although the website, I do like the new game center tracker, the visualizer, the scoring visualizer. I do like that. And apparently the data is completely removable from that. So that's one idea. And if you've ever seen us on the Sports on the Hill podcast in our first hour where we cover the Caps, that's we make use of that. So I strongly suggest, if you haven't seen that yet, it's on the NHL.com site. You go into the game center, and it's the visualizer, and it will basically show a digitized version of the play that led to the goal. So I strongly advise doing that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Okay.
I'll check that out.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So thanks for enlightening us about that. That's kind of what I figured it was anyway. But yeah, I was sometimes I see numbers from places like moneypuck.com, and I don't quite get how they must have their own formula, because I saw a list of all the forward lines, all the top forward lines that they had by expected goals for. And none of the Caps lines, let alone the top two, placed in the top 25. And I thought, well, as many goals as they score, how can that be? And I looked a little closer, and it's like, well, the margins are like 0.1% difference from line to line to line, so they're not really that far behind.
Yeah.
But you really got to look. But that if you kind of just glance at it, it's not, it doesn't tell the whole story. You really got to look hard into some of these numbers.
Yeah.
Um,
And that I mean, the margin across the whole NHL, just generally speaking, is going to be really small. Like, I mean, a really good player generally has an expected goals percentage like 55%. Like, that's kind of the range. It's like 45 to 55. And then, like, Connor McDavid will be up at 60, but, like, that's about it.
Yeah, I think the top line in this list was something at 62%, and then the first Caps grouping was all the way down at 56.5% or something like that. But
Yeah, which
there
is
were
ridiculously good. But there's
yeah,
also like so many lines.
true. Yeah, so many different line combinations to track. Um, yeah. Okay, that all is awesome information. So let's go ahead and break down these three games. So we kind of took the first game, the Sharks game. Um, so it was from a I guess you could say an attitude or spiritual standpoint. Maybe the Caps' approach to this game wasn't ideal, although in the first period they actually bombed the Sharks with, what was it, 14 shots in the first period, I want to
Something like
say. Yeah, 16 actually. 16-8 was the shot total in the first period, but then it declined horribly. What would you say from a statistical standpoint was the key to the loss, other than certain things that happened on the ice towards the end of the game?
um I mean, it's tough. It's really tough when you have a first period like that and don't score. It's it's kind of demoralizing. And you can almost see it, like they just backbreaker by San Jose just kind of sucked the air out of the game.
Yeah, I'd agree to that. I kind of well, a friend of mine in another room noticed this. Would you say that the that well, recently anyway, the fact that they've had more than a couple goals called back due to goaltender interference affect that? Would you agree with that?
In fact, which thing? I think you cut out.
The
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. You mentioned that after the first period, after all the failed attempts to score, they kind of it seemed like they kind of withdrew. And what um, what I noticed was that they weren't. We talked about location being quantified. I noticed that they weren't nearly providing enough of a net front presence. And so the question I was posing was, do you think the fact that, recently them having, so many goals called back due to goaltender interference being something of a cause of that?
Um, that's entirely possible. I don't know that I could say one way or the other. They've had a little bit less of a net front presence just generally going since the first like month of the season. Um, but it hasn't dropped to like bad levels. It's just not that insanely high level that we were seeing earlier in the season.
Very true. Um, Now, what would you say? And we're sticking with the Sharks game. Um, do you think it's a coincidence that the shot totals went down? Um, literally exponentially here as I'm looking at it. 16 in the first, 8 in the second, and then 4 in the third, and of course none in the overtime period. Um, does does it normally work out like that? Uh,
Uh, if you're up like 6 or 7-0, it might, but generally speaking, no. It's not out of the realm of possibility that they tired themselves out in the first period, but I find that unlikely. I think that was just a weird game. Um,
yeah,
I
I'd agree. Sorry, go ahead.
oh no, that was all I had.
Yeah, I think it was part of it was they might have thought that okay, we get a couple goals early in the first period, and that's all we need to do because they're points wise not exactly one of the best teams in the league, and I think they let the gang get away from them, and to a man, they pretty much admitted all that. But it's yeah, kind of surprising seeing the shot totals, and I always key in on that as a statistic for anyone who's beginning to watch the game. Of course, that's the most telling factor of offensive output is shots on goal. Uh, Now what what have you seen, and in this kind of more general, what have you seen this year overall that's contributed to the team's resurgence? Obviously, they're scoring a lot more goals, way more goals than they were last year. But what's really been the difference, if you can either personify it or quantify it at all?
Yeah, so the thing that the way I would describe it using math only is that they're they're shooting more, and their expected goals has gone up, and so has their shooting percentage. Last year they just could not buy a goal. Uh I mean, if you just think about like Ovi's had like what 6 goals through the first half of the season or
Hmm.
something like that. Um and that was kind of emblematic of the whole team. And he was having by the end of the season, he was having better luck than anybody, and his luck still wasn't great. He was not getting the puck to go in as much as we know him to be able to. Um, and this year, it's been the complete opposite. Everybody's just uh, shots are going in at just a much higher rate. Um, let me see if I can get the exact shooting percentages in front of me, but it was like night and day from last year to this year. Um,
While you're doing that, I I thought I saw somewhere that not you mentioned shots that are going in this year that didn't last year. I thought I saw somewhere where um, the concept of puck luck could also be quantified, and um, I didn't believe it at first, and I wish to heck I had the article in front of me. But the more I read about it, yeah, you kind of make your own luck um, at times, anyway.
yeah.
Um,
So different people have different opinions. I tend to think it's both. So I usually go by within reason. So if you're shooting at a rate of like let's say 20%, that's you're just getting really lucky at that point.
mhm.
Um, or if you're shooting at like 4%, you're just really unlucky. Um, but if you're in the 12s, like the Caps are this season. They have 12% this season at 5-on-5, and they're 13% at all strengths. Whereas last year they were, hold on, last year they were at 9%, and that improved over the season as well. So like it doesn't feel like this is some crazy lucky stretch that's going to just go away once their luck runs out. This feels like they're actually shooting well. They're shooting
And that,
better.
I'm glad you said that, because that leads right into my next question. Is all of this resurgence sustainable?
To a degree, I keep waiting. See, I've been saying for a while now that I think they have to lose 2 or 3 games in a row, and then we'll see how they bounce back from that to really know what this team is, because they're going to lose 2 or 3 games in a row at some point.
Mhm.
Happens to every team. And then how you deal with that shows what kind of team you really are, but they really haven't strung together back-to-back losses very much. So, but the numbers all seem relatively steady. They were winning when their power play sucked, and now their power play doesn't suck. They, they've had good games defensively to make up for bad offense. They've had, games where they weren't so great defensively, but they just scored a bunch, so it was okay. All of it seemed both looking at the math of it and also just from watching the games, the whole they keep finding different ways to win thing really is true.
Yeah, it is. So as long as that aspect of it, they can, find a way to keep up. What I like is that it's not one player, well, certainly not one player, and not even one line that um, they I don't want to say that they're reliant on, but per game, does the job. More often than not, if the Dubois line, gets a point, then the top line or the other line, the other offensive line will get a point or get involved somehow. And then other games, the fourth line starts things like as they did this week. Um, so I think that's, to me, one of the most valuable aspects of the team is that they're so versatile. They become so versatile on offense. Anybody can jumpstart it this year. Um, but the same token, I kind of wish they'd be more responsible defensively. And of course, there's a way to track that. There's the opposite of metric, of course, from goals for. Expected goals for, that is expected goals against.
Mhm.
And I haven't bothered. I should. I haven't bothered to see how well they've tracked this year on that. But there have been games where, like you said, it's not it's not exactly been great. And they've had to rely on their offense to bail them out. And then there's other games like this week, mostly, that they've locked it down and managed to, like the Toronto game. Nylander, Marner, and Matthews held to 2 shots each. You can do that, you're going to win most games.
Yeah, and they definitely they started off really really dominant defensively, and it's not been quite as dominant as it was early on. Um, but it's still, I mean, they're still doing better than league average on defense, and then they're really going strong on offense. So um, the decrease in defense has balanced itself out.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Um, Now we mentioned a guy already. I don't know if everybody listening is still of two minds about this guy, but I've definitely changed my stance on him. When the deal was made to get Dubois for Kemper, I was at first against it. My impression of him was what I'd seen in limited videos, which admittedly I probably shouldn't have done. Made my judgment off of that. Now that I've actually done the math, done the research, done the digging, um, what what might have been seen as him being casual and uncaring was probably more like he was misused in LA, um, and not really sure of where he fit into their plan. And most likely was the reason why he was not as productive.
Mhm.
Now this year, I think those who were in his corner might have been expecting more of an explosive statistics, at least on the goal side. And I'm getting a hint of disappointment from some that, well, why aren't his numbers bigger? But there's more to him than those numbers. I think you can shed some light on that for us.
Yeah, so I also was like, "Oh gosh, no, why did we trade for this guy?" Um and he has done nothing but prove me wrong the whole way. I'm all in on this guy. I've liked him for a few weeks now, but what solidified in my mind that I was 100% wrong about him was that racing out that icing when the other team had the goalie pulled to ice the game. I forget which team that was against now.
That was against the Devils. And it was
Right. Yes.
against all people. It was against Jack Hughes,
Yeah.
if you can believe that.
He beat out Jack Hughes, and I was like, okay, yep, this guy won me over. I was officially wrong about him. And as far as the offensive, the point production and all that, it's going to come because I just talked about I only count it against your shooting percentage. I only really count as being unreliable if it's extreme. Well, his is extremely low. The last I looked, which was before he scored yesterday, so it's probably gone up, but the last I had looked, he had the second worst goals above expected, which essentially measures how many goals you actually scored minus how many you've expected to score.
Right.
And his was the second worst in the league, which screams unlucky, and it's going to come back at some point to me.
Well, that's certainly good news. But I never saw him as a scoring threat anyway. If anything, from my studies of him, he was going to be he was going to add some size down the middle, which we've been lacking for a while. But just as important, secondary playmaking ability, which they've certainly been without for quite a long time. And he's delivered more than that. But I'm also hearing whispers of hey, make this guy a candidate for the Selke Trophy, which is the award they hand out for best defensive forward. And when he does stuff like out racing Jack Hughes for icing, and stand up for his teammates in scrums and get in the way of shots that forwards don't usually get in the way of, and does all those little things. Now they've got a case, and that certainly wasn't an aspect I was expecting. But that would certainly go into something like goals against per 60 or expected goals against or anything like that. Although that's really a stat that you probably key on with defensemen, but certainly forwards are measured from that as well.
Yeah, you can definitely look at a forward's those numbers for a forward, and get an idea, how we do it all the time, especially, it's been at times it can be a source of consternation with Ovechkin because sometimes, despite all the goals, he's on the ice for a lot more than you want. He's been good this year though, up until the injury.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of which, we're going to get into something of what may be a triggering issue, shall we say, with some Caps fans, and that's how well the power play has been doing without Ovechkin. or
Oops.
has it? Yeah. So is uh, causation equal correlation here, or however the saying goes, or is it just coincidence, or I mean, how do the numbers bear out as far as that goes?
So the the power play did start improving a couple of games before Ovi got hurt. So I don't think you can say, "Oh, it's just because Ovi left." But I think the fact that they're not force feeding it to him helps. I don't think that the taking away the best the best power play goal scorer in the history of the game is going to help your power play. I don't think that's a sensible position to take. But I do think that perhaps tying the other four guys' hands together so that they actually have to use each other and not just force feed it to Ovi might have helped. And hopefully it'll get even better when he comes back. And then they have that option, but they also maybe know how not to just force feed it to him. That's my hope.
Yeah, so obviously there's this is a case of both things can be true in that uh double-mindedness. He was part of the problem, but he can also be part of the solution. Um, yeah, I don't know. Um, I surprisingly I'm of two minds about that. I don't know that not or lessening his time or his opportunities would be the overall cure. I do like the fact that he's a lot more mobile on the power play. I think that's been a key.
That's definitely
Um,
helped.
and I'm sure, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think actually NHL Edge actually has a location tracker, a skating tracker. I know they do it for speed, but I'm pretty sure they also uh, track locations during certain points of the game. So if you were to look that up, you can definitely see the difference there. But yeah, that's definitely helped. Um, but I don't know. Sometimes it looks like they're just they are looking to force feed him, and I don't know if that's because sometimes when he gets into a drought, or they feel like they need a goal urgently, or what that is. But that goes all into the mentality of squeezing the sawdust out of your stick. Yes, once upon a time sticks were actually made out of wood. Um, and that they do that to their peril, and they don't just relax and just stick to the overall game plan. I I I wish they would get away from that, but unfortunately, they're Ovi being who he is, they're not going to get away from that anytime soon. Um,
Yeah. I think
so
for a long time you could overpass to Ovechkin because there were so many other threats to score on the power play. Like when you have peak Kuznetsov, peak Oshie, peak Carlson, uh, peak Backstrom, all on the same power play. Well, yeah, it's okay to force feed Ovi because they do still have to cover the other four guys. You know,
right,
um, uh, not to speak ill of any of the guys in the current power play, but they're not those guys. Um, and so if Ovi's the only threat to score and he's also the only threat to shoot, well, it's easier for the penalty kill to just shade Ovechkin.
yeah, and but fortunately, there's and again, this might be have something to do with him being more mobile. That hasn't proven to always be the cure, even though they did start off really awfully this season. They were, I think the what was it? The first few weeks they were dead last at one point, but they've long since picked it up. Thank goodness. Um, Picking themselves all the way back up to the middle of the pack overall. Kind of been slumping as of late without Ovechkin. So you who are on the side of, well, Ovi's not the problem, that'll lend a little bit to your side of the argument. But it's power plays. I find have gone. Have always been to some extent, not completely, ebbs and flows. Uh, uh, Coaches, if they're smart enough, they know that the key to a good penalty kill is put your four fastest skaters out there who know how to handle their sticks.
Yeah.
Some coaches don't quite understand that. They don't quite grasp that. That's why you're going to see penalty kill percentages not as good on some teams or certain teams. So it really depends because there's so much parity in the league now. It really depends on who you're playing. Um, and this is one of the things I don't like about the scheduling. But once upon a time, you played those in your division anywhere from 6 to 10 times. Now I realize this was way back in the day where there weren't anywhere near as many teams in the league, but you had more of a rivalry back then. Now you're lucky if you play the other team in your division 4 times, sometimes three. So you're not always going to see the same opposition line up against, and that goes into another key stat. I don't know if we have time to go into it, but I heard this. I don't know if anyone goes by this anymore, but I used to see a metric called a quality of competition, and that basically, if I understood it right, measured for a player the line they were up against at any given time over an aggregate amount of time. Um, and to mark out, what kind of opposition they would regularly face, and kind of help take you into consideration of, oh, this is why they're productive or not as productive. So, uh, are you
Oh,
familiar with that metric at all?
so I am not familiar with it as like a specific number, but I know that a lot of places, or a lot of people who do this will factor that in implicitly into their model. So like the biggest one I know who does it is Hockey Viz. He makes all those pretty red and blue heat maps that you'll see
Yep,
people post.
love
um
those.
his heat maps um factor in quality of competition. It's not expressly stated what it is, but you'll get an expected goals number that accounts for quality of competition. Um, that's um, that's not something I've ever made. It requires a bit more coding ability than I have, but I'm happy to use what other people have calculated, such as him.
Yeah, and so in specifically mentioning, so if you're listening and you're wanting to dive more deeply into what we've been talking about, and hopefully you do, because our goal here at this podcast is to make you a better, more knowledgeable fan. So these aren't just numbers that are made up and used to make your case. They do point to something, and they do reveal things about how a team plays and performs. But one of the tools that was just mentioned, Hockey Viz, as Blake just mentioned, is displays the heat maps, and I'm pretty sure they're part of another site, naturalstattrick.com.
Those are two separate sites.
Okay.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, Natural Stat Trick pretty much gives tables of raw data, um, whereas Hockey Viz, uh, his goal is to like visualize it for people who may not necessarily be equipped to handle just tables of data.
Yeah, so right, that makes perfect sense. Hence, Hockey Viz. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's for anyone who's more of a visual learner. And yes, I'm an ex-teacher, so I know something about that. That's a perfect site for anyone who wants something of a visual comparison of how productive a team is. So I highly recommend that. Now, one more basic stat I want to go over. If you're kind of dipping your toe in the water as far as analytics, someplace I think is a good start is possession metrics, mainly being Corsi and Fenwick. Basically, what those do is they measure shot attempts that are directed at the net, whether they're blocked or reach the net. In some cases, against an empty net or miss the net entirely. Those are counted depending on whether you're looking at Corsi or Fenwick. Blake, you can correct me on this, but different types of shot attempts are taken into consideration. Basically, you get a plus point if you're on the ice. If your team puts a shot towards the net, and a minus point if you're on the ice when you have a shot, at your net. So it's plus minus for shot attempts, but I think it's one of the better, more easier metrics to understand if you want overall possession. Uh, so
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That's how I started getting into hockey stats, is by looking at Corsi and Fenwick. So Corsi is basically just any shot attempt, and Fenwick is specifically ones that weren't blocked by a skater. I think I don't know for sure the reason behind why they're tracked separately, but my suspicion is that um, for some weird reason, when the NHL tracks blocked shot attempts, they track it. The location that they mark is the shot where the person blocked it, not where the shot was taken from. So I think that's, which is important for if you're calculating expected goals.
Right.
I suspect that's the reason, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, personally, I prefer Corsi for everything, unless I'm really trying to get towards expected goals.
Perfect. Okay, so again, those are the two metrics are called Corsi and Fenwick, and you can look those up at mainly Natural Stat Trick, but do a basic Google machine search, and you'll find articles about them, how they're calculated, and certainly tables and lists of players and I think overall teams as well that they track that lead in those categories, and hopefully that'll give you a better idea of who has the puck most of the time, and two, who is at least generating scoring chances. And I think you'll get, the idea is to get a better idea of how games flow overall from game to game, or what kind of a chance a team can expect to have to dominate the game in that fashion. Okay, so we're getting towards the end here. I just want to I want to take advantage of your knowledge and experience, Blake, and given the fact that we are a third of the way through the season, what now that we can expect Ovi to return in, say, the next 3 weeks, maybe before right around the time we're opening presents and or lighting the menorah. What kind of a forecast would you say? And you don't have to get too detailed, but what kind of a forecast are you willing to give for the Caps, at least in the coming months?
Well, I don't. I think the playoff spot by Thanksgiving rule isn't. It's right for the wrong reasons. Is my general opinion. So I think we're in a good spot. If you believe in that rule, I think we are going to see a little bit of a drop off. I don't think this level of good is sustainable over the rest of the season. I don't think we're real President's Trophy contenders, but I definitely think that we are. I feel confident saying we're making the playoffs, and I would not be shocked if we make some noise. I would not go put the house on us to win the cup or anything like that. But I think this went from let's see how bad of a rebuild this is going to be to anything. This is now officially an anything could happen year in my book.
Perfectly described. You mentioned the playoff position by Thanksgiving. I don't know how much that applies this year, given the amount of parity that there is league wide. I mean, for crying out loud, you had the San Jose Sharks. What was it? They went their first 6 or 7 games without a point at all, and now look at them. They're they're ahead of Anaheim, and the rate that they're going, even though they've lost a few.
Well, Anaheim
Um,
solved all of their problems by trading for Jacob Trouba.
Oh goodness! And that's the other thing. The Rangers imploding. Who saw that coming?
Yeah,
Not
that's
me.
pretty wild. I would not have predicted that.
Well, I did and I didn't, but it's just and part of it is, and I fear we're going to get into a bit of an argument here, but part of it is their obvious mismanagement, more off the ice than on the ice, and we already mentioned Jacob Trouba, but some of it on the ice as well. You and I have butted heads about this before. I know. I'm have completely soured on Laviolette after being a fan of his and thinking maybe he still had what it takes to guide a team uh, to some distance at least in the playoffs, and that not being the case with us. Well, let's just say you're of the opposite opinion. But
I, I think so. Regarding the Rangers specifically, I think the Rangers have been frauds for years, and
yeah,
they're finally getting exposed for the fact that they didn't know how to play offense 5-on-5. They were just skating by on their power play and their goaltending, and it's finally come back to bite them. And I think that goes back pre-Laviolette. I can't speak to what Laviolette's done in New York relative to what he was like here. But regardless of where we stand on Laviolette, I'm glad we have Carberry now.
oh yes,
We
and
can at least
he
agree on that.
that I will wholeheartedly agree of. And this is fortunately or unfortunately not something that can exactly be quantified, but he's definitely proven that he has that it factor that coaches need to unite a room, hopefully for a long time going forward. The shelf life of NHL coaches seems to be diminishing even more as the years go by. We've already had 3 firings this year, 4,
Like
I
that.
think, with more on the way. I'm pretty sure. Uh, so I hope that lasts an even long time, because Carberry definitely has, from what I'm seeing, that factor that everybody can get behind this guy, and even when things are going bad, he will make you listen to him and help you to make things better. And that's I don't think a lot of the pundits took that into consideration when the just about all of them blithely dismissed the Capitals as missing the playoffs. Some weren't even giving a reason. They just would flat out say, "Well, they're not making the playoffs. There's no way," and wouldn't even bother to give a reason. I don't know if you're familiar with the Locked On Capitals podcast, but I've talked to Dan Holme, and he said on one of his episodes, yeah, I've been on other Locked On episodes, and they were all like, yeah, I don't see the Caps going anywhere this year. and I could not be more thrilled that they're amongst the other teams like the Rangers that have proven to be frauds, that the Caps have proven themselves to be the real thing. But overall, I think I'd have to agree with you that this torrid pace that they're on, this President's Trophy pace, which frankly, I do not want to see them winning
The
at
President's
all.
Trophy. The President's Trophy curse is fake. It's made up. It's never been real. President's Trophies winners win the Stanley Cup at a rate of like twice everybody else. They're like twice as likely. It just didn't work out for the Caps.
Even so, I've been a hockey fan long enough to know that that kind of a thing is enough to weigh on your mind. And if your mind isn't quite in the right place, then that has consequences. And that even if the numbers are on your side, if you have that in the back of your head, so I I tell you something else. I think that kind of statistical, what's the word I'm looking for? Acknowledgement,
Uh,
um, is in and of itself, I think, a fallacy, a falsehood, um, misleading. Very much so. It can make you believe you're better than you actually are. And case in point, the Rangers, who not only can't play 5-on-5, they have next to no toughness at all. Even when they have a certain 6'7" goon in their lineup, um, that's like putting on a blonde wig and calling yourself a prostitute. You know, that's not that's not real toughness, and they don't have any. They've never had any. You need an element of that to survive 4 rounds of the playoffs, and you know if it's anything, I'm looking for that. Though there's no current way to quantify that, except with a possible exception of penalty minutes, um, and given certain situations and penalty kill. Um, I'm waiting for that to show itself. For the Caps to prove themselves in that manner. But the way I've seen them, and well, I guess one way to look at it, actually see for yourself, is how they behave, during scrums, and when there's a goal called back, and when there's the majority of penalties calling against them. It's not only mental toughness, of course, but physical toughness. Um, so that's kind of something I'm waiting to see manifest itself over the rest of the season, is how they react. Uh, when more games are played.
yeah, I think they have done a really good job of powering through penalties. Like an onslaught of calls against them, they still managed to find a way to win. I think some of that is just having a really good penalty kill, um, which certainly helps you, you know, power through. But um, yeah, I would agree. There's still a degree of chip that you'd like to see. Last night was a good example, though. Willie coming back after getting a lump put in his face and then scoring 2 goals.
Yeah, and it's not even pardon me. It's not even necessarily you know instigating a fight or
Oh yeah,
laying
no.
out a big hit. It's simply surviving moments like that, where a key player is missing, and then comes back to either contribute, or you survive his absence in some form, even though the first 15 minutes of that game didn't look very good. But again, they somehow they found a way to come through it. And yeah, that's the one thing I would say, that if they can find a way to sustain that, then I think they'll be in pretty good shape come April and May. So,
Yeah.
um, all right, so we're just about out of time here. We didn't get a chance to do it with Anna, but I want to do a quick preview of coming attractions, and you can lend your opinion here, however you wish, Blake. So next week, the next week worth of games that this podcast will cover uh, will be Caps have a nice break, as Anna mentioned, up until next Thursday, the 12th. Caps are technically still on the road. They'll go to Nationwide Arena against the Blue Jackets in Columbus. That's a 7 o'clock puck drop, and then they come back home on the weekend to face the Buffalo Sabres. I will actually be at that game. Up in the nosebleeds with Marcus Clarence from Marcus Lemley from the Sacrooms Off the Chain podcast. So we're going to watch that in person. That's a 7 o'clock puck drop at Cap One. And then the week after, just before the holiday week, there is another quick road trip to Dallas, and then a back-to-back against Chicago. And then back home that Friday against Carolina. That's probably going to be the Truett test right there. So given those 5 games, how do you think we'll do overall?
Um. Well, I think it'll be a good stretch for us. Obviously the Blackhawks not great. The Stars have been decent. hopefully we can exploit the Blue Jackets goaltending situation. Their goals allowed above expected has been atrocious this season. So hopefully that one will go well for us. I think the big one is going to be against the Hurricanes. A big divisional game, and that'll really be telling about how April and May, as you mentioned, might go for us.
Yeah, I think as long as I don't want to say that's going to be an immediate L, but I think as long as again they have a strong showing against the Hurricanes, I think that really at that point that's all I'm looking for. And then they've got 2 more matchups against them later in the year. I think that'll be a lot more telling because they could be a potential playoff opponent depending on how things finish. So there's certainly a quality measuring stick. But yeah, I agree. They're that key game the next 2 weeks coming up for sure. Okay, so I think with that, we will wrap it up here. And for those of you who weren't quite expecting an educational experience, even though, well, Anna's a teacher and I'm an ex-teacher, I'm not going to apologize because again, we're looking to make you seriously though. We're looking to make you a better Caps fan, and as they say, numbers don't lie. So it's just another way of looking at the game and studying it properly, and hopefully you did learn something or get an urge to research things, because that's when it comes down to it, that's what makes you better. If you can look at the numbers and then compare them to what actually happens on the ice, you get, I think, what the truest reality of the game that comes to life. You get the best idea of how your team is doing. I think sometimes it's hard to put into words. Sometimes facts and figures are a lot easier to tell the tale. And so again, that's why we did this. So Blake, I want to thank you again for coming on with us. And don't be a stranger. We'd love to have you on a lot more often. So
thanks for having me. I'd love to be back.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, look forward to that for sure. All right. So if you've been listening this far, thank you, Caps fans. This episode 269, we'll put this out as soon as possible, hopefully next Monday morning. So it is December the 8th as we're speaking here. So thanks again. So for the Mermaid, Anna Knox and Blake Allen, this is the Blue Liner on Point signing off and reminding you that if you are indeed a math teacher and you're headed for vacation and you're traveling, just a PSA here, remember not to bring along the tools of the trade, things like a calculator, a compass, a ruler, graph paper, things like that. If you do, I'm sure that travel security will surely have you arrested for trying to bring on implements of math instruction. Hallelujah, and let's go Caps.
Go Caps.
This has been another episode of the Power Play Point podcast. All episodes are available from Apple Podcasts, the Podbean app, blueliner77.podbean.com, and now available from Stitcher. Music by Joe McAllister, voiceover by Jeffrey Conkle.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Power Play Point podcast. Thanks for listening.